I'm so happy to see everyone today. I'm Jane Clark, president of our Michigan West Coast Chamber of Commerce. It's going to be a great morning. I want to say welcome to all of our in-person attendees, as well as our many special guests that are watching remotely today. We're so glad you've joined us. I say it so many times, the Chamber cannot do our work without our fantastic sponsors. And so to all of you that are longtime Chamber champions, Chamber sponsors, we appreciate you. And today we're going to meet one of our premier sponsors, JR Automation. And joining me on stage is Craig Ulrich. Craig is the president of JR Automation, and I'm just going to have a short conversation with him so you can get to know JR a little bit. So welcome, Craig.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a big year. How's it going?
Well, it was, as everyone knows, it was an interesting year with COVID. I would say very interesting. Unfortunately, really politicized the COVID. It was unfortunate. We had some mask mandates in there for it that weren't necessarily welcome, but I think we wanted to keep our people safe and make sure that we had a safe working environment. So we did do those things. It was a great year. The other issue I think everyone had was the Great Resignation this year, and we actually had quite a good year. I think we averaged 50 people a month that we hired. We hired 600 people throughout JR over the past year. So, with Great Resignation and COVID being out there, I think we managed to still have a great year.
That's wonderful, and we've all got our fingers crossed that we've turned the corner and wonderful things ahead. Now, many of us watched in the media, you guys had a bad fire at JR earlier this year. You want to talk a little bit about that? How's it going?
I don't know if anyone saw that. I think it made the news. It was pretty devastating. Pretty devastating to have a fire like that, but it was odd. We had a power failure that morning, so nobody came to work. And to that particular building, we have 11 buildings here in Holland, but that particular building, we called everyone, told them stay home that day. As power started to come back on, we had some type of surge, and it actually created the fire. So it was pretty unfortunate, but luckily nobody hurt. So I think that was number one. Nobody got hurt. Nobody was in the building when it occurred, and I think we got really lucky with that. That was the most important. I think the second thing is it's just amazing how people come together. That whole team came together. They're devastated, right? These are people that have toolboxes, and these are workers, right? These are people that was our CNC shop. So we had 27 CNCs in there, and all of our fabrication was in that building, and so devastating. All these guys have their toolboxes, and that's like their home, that toolbox, and they lost them. So that we were able to take care of all that and make sure everybody was happy. We had another building that we could move into quickly. I do want to thank. We had an outpouring from the community. Even our competitors called and said, "Hey, you can use our machinery," which is pretty cool, right? I mean, that was really nice that we had people out, make that kind of reach to us to try to make sure we were okay. We actually came up to speed very quickly. We were able to outsource everything that we would do in-house. We were able to outsource it relatively quickly out into the community. And then actually I think we're almost back in business. We got very lucky with getting some CNCs. Last year I think we ordered 2, and it took 6 months to get them, and we got about 5 CNCs I think in about 3 weeks. So really good stuff.
Good. I'm glad to hear the recovery has gone so well.
Yeah.
Last question. You mentioned it. 11 buildings. I think you have about 2,000 employees in the area. You are known for hiring a lot of young engineers. Talk a little bit about maintaining corporate culture.
Yeah, I'm a big. I don't know if anyone heard Peter Drucker's culture eats strategy for breakfast. I like strategy. But culture is I believe in that saying. It's really more important. So with that younger culture or younger folks, really some of the culture that we're trying to build, one safety. What we do is can be very unsafe. You're using heavy equipment, heavy machinery, cranes, you can drop things on your toes, you can get hurt really easy in what we do. So safety is a big deal, and we talk about safety continuously, and that is part of our culture. Just talking about that, and then the family, I would say, we want to be a family-style group as well, right? And taking care of these folks that all the machinists that lost their tools, taking care of them and making sure that they were comfortable was a big deal for us. But really, we want our people to take care of each other, and that's the culture that we're trying to build. And if anyone knows safety and you know what the Bradley curve is, there's a couple different areas on this Bradley curve, and interdependent is where we're trying to get to. Dependent is where we are on the Bradley curve. Dependent is you have a bunch of rules in place for safety, and you have managers that enforce those rules, right? That's dependent. Interdependent is you have a bunch of rules, and everyone on the shop floor, everyone in the company helps with those rules, helps to make sure that those rules are followed. So if I see you being unsafe, I make sure that I tell you that you're being unsafe, not as a manager, as your fellow colleague, right? So that's the culture that we're trying to build.
Well, it's wonderful. Thank you. You're a major employer in town. Appreciate all you do. Audience members, please join me in thanking Craig Ulrich. That's good. Well, now it's time to go to our main event today and introduce our guest speaker. For our audience members, normally we do some tabletop networking. We're incorporating that into today's presentation. So you're going to have time to get to know your fellow table members today. For our attendees who are following us today digitally, you're also going to be in a Zoom room where we're going to ask for your active participation as well. So we want to incorporate both sets of audiences in today's presentation. And our presenter, I'm just so excited to welcome back someone that I've known for many, many years, Ramírez-Sáenz. Anna's the founder and CEO of La Fuente Consulting. She is on a mission to bridge cultures and simplify communications. She has over 15 years' experience working with C-suite leaders in Fortune 500 companies as a management consultant, a strategist, and an executive coach. So please welcome Anna Ramírez-Sáenz to the stage.
Good morning. Buenos días. ¿Cómo estamos? Ah, mis amigos. Muy bien. Good morning, good morning. I am so thrilled to be here, and I'm coming home. And for those of you that are watching virtually, bienvenidos wherever you are. All right. So I am happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I would be remiss if I didn't do two things first. One is acknowledge people in this room who have helped me launch my career and my company. And those two people I have known for over 25 years. So I'm going to take just a minute to acknowledge Ann and Herb Weller. They have been supporters, they have been guides and coaches. So I just want to acknowledge them as friends. So thank you so much for being with me. Thank you. The other thing that I want to do is I do want to take just a quick moment to acknowledge and to think about peace as we see what is unfolding before us. So I'd just like to take a minute for us to think about peace in terms of what is happening with the situation in Ukraine. And one last thing is to all of our healthcare workers, all of our EMTs, and all those folks that are helping us through this COVID pandemic. Thank you. If any of you are in the room or know of someone, thank them. All right? So, good deal. Here we go. We are on a time schedule. I am one to begin on time and end on time. All right? So we only have about 45 minutes, so we're not going to conquer world hunger. We're only going to do 3 things. One, we're going to talk about keeping the people and why we're doing that. We're going to talk about dropping labels and why do we need to do that. And then how do we build a culture of inclusion? And Craig alluded to that a little bit of how culture is so important to you. So those are the things that we are going to talk about. I've got slides. They're going to be guides, so we're not going to read everything on the slide, but these are going to be made available if you have any interest in any of the information. All right? So I'm coming home. I'm home. I am, I don't want to say a native of Holland, but I grew up in Holland. My family came to Holland in 1968. And so that's what the sign looked like in 1970. I went to Washington Elementary School, and now they are condos. So as I drove by last night, I'm going like, that's my corner 6th grade classroom. What happened? And then I went to EEFL, which is now a child care center and something else, those 2 buildings. That's my mom in front of our house on 14th Street. She was so proud when we bought it, renovated it, and I took a picture of her. And then, yes, that's me. I was in the marching band. So let's move on, right? So I got a little nostalgic last night driving around. I drove all the way up to Holland High School, and I'm going like, where's the Oval? What happened? So I got a little teary-eyed going down memory lane, and then I began to think about what has happened here is amazing. It's completely amazing because although there are still some iconic places in Holland, much has changed. And the people have also changed, but the values remain the same. So we're going to talk about people and why this is so important of keeping the people, all right? So who are the people that we want to keep? And who are the people that we want to attract? So real quickly, all right, we just finished the 2020 census. The census indicated that West Michigan was experiencing the highest growth, even though overall our Michigan population decreased by 3%. However, when you look at West Michigan, all right, and the composition of West Michigan, we've changed, right? We've changed. So you can see the numbers of how we are growing. So if we are growing and we are attracting people to come here, how do we keep them? And how do we continue the growth? I'm astounded by how many people you've hired. So I have lots of questions about how you've done that, how you've integrated them, and so forth. But when we think about this, think about the opportunity that we have. We've been talking about the Great Migration. Everybody's talking about it, all right? And then we have the opportunity for a great transformation. And we do. We really do. And so when we talk about transformation, we have to talk about the composition of people in general in the United States and what our workforce looks like and how that workforce is changing, all right? So when we look at that, we see the composition of the workforce. It's before us, and it's going to continue to change. And as you can see, you always have a bell curve, and in the middle is the sweet spot. And that sweet spot is the millennial generation. All right? Hey. So it's that millennial generation. And this is really important. This is really important because we have to look at where we are today and where we are in the future and how that affects what we do, how we do it, and how we work with each other. All right? So when we think about that, we think about refocusing the conversation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is just an abbreviated timeline. But when you think about where D&I started, where we are today, and where it's going, we need to be mindful that not everybody thinks about DE&I in the same way, right? They don't think about it in the same way as how we look at history and where we are going. It's really, really important. So think about your organizations. Think about whether you are starting to think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and whether you're at the D or at the I or at the E, right? And think about that generation of millennials, whether they think about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the same way as traditional boomers and Gen Xers, right? And then the employees that are coming after them, that are the digital employees, where they're used to diversity. They're used to people that are different from them. For them, it's nothing. For them, it is an expectation that you are already diverse. And now how are we going to work to solve business problems together? So it's really important for us to think about that not all of us think about diversity and inclusion in the same way. So we go from representation, compliance, right? In the 1960s, in affirmative action, you know, this ugly word called quotas, all right? To today, when we think about what is it that employees need to be successful in your companies, in the marketplace. Kudos to all of you that are learning, that are doing great work in your organizations. I saw Scott here today, came up and said, hello, fellow practitioners. There's a lot of energy going on here, a lot of energy. So how do we harness that? We harness that by looking at and understanding that not everybody looks at DE&I in the same way. As long as you are questioning, as long as you're willing to learn and talk to your employees, you're ahead of the game. So this is important because we need to refocus the conversation. I had somebody tell me when I did part of this presentation, and they said, well, Anna, I'm just getting started, and you're telling me I got to change. I said, but now is the perfect time to begin to ask those questions. Now is the perfect time, all right? So when we talk about workplace culture, what are we talking about? What are we really talking about? Workplace culture anywhere, culture has 4 elements: your values, your behaviors, your beliefs, and your attitudes. And culture is a pattern of behaviors. So you learn it. You don't come out of the womb saying, I'm culturally intelligent, right? We learn it. So what are these 4 elements doing in corporate culture, and how do we manage those relative to where we want to drive our organizations? Many of you have read about corporate culture. Many of you have seen the videos. Many of you have been in the trainings. But how many of you are really bringing it back and asking the question, what does that mean to me in my organization, and is my leadership demonstrating that authentically and genuinely, so that the next level of leaders see it, the next level of middle managers see it, and your employees at large see it. So it's critical. Corporate culture is critical. There's many layers to corporate culture, and you all know purpose and values, norms and behaviors, communication and collaboration, recognition and contribution. I'm going to go back to the millennials, right? This is really important. They want to contribute at a values level, not a quantity level. So is my contribution being recognized and adding value to business impact? So it's really, really important. And are we all working for the same common goals, right? So we talk about expectations, all right? And the study that is really, really seminal to this work is right here, and we will make that available to you, but it really distinguishes the expectations of the workforce, all right, and how that has changed. So when we look at the non-millennial category, and I love demographers, right, that help us to understand this, all right, you can see the differences. You can see the differences in focus. And if we, as CEOs, as directors, okay, as D&I, cultural change agents, don't recognize this, I'm helping you, right? Because we need to understand that the expectations are different. And I grant you, totally grant you, where you are in your journey and what you can and cannot do. But I will submit to you that whatever it is that you want to do, that it needs to be with purpose, followed by strategy, followed by metrics, okay? And followed by monitoring. How are we doing? Because that's the expectation right here, is am I contributing? Am I adding value to this organization? Or is the organization still working through where they are in your journey? And we need to let those individuals that are progressing and want more to be able to contribute more. So this is really fundamental to corporate culture, all right? So when we talk about dropping the labels, all right, this is a whole day seminar that I do. We're going to do it in 10 minutes. So when we talk about dropping the labels, it's got lots of terms, stereotypes, biases, you know? So whatever feels good to you, it's okay, all right? How are we doing, virtual folks? Are you keeping up? Everything good? Good deal. So when we talk about dropping the labels, we have to look at ourselves. Hola? Everybody okay? Tagging with me? We have to look at ourselves first. And how are we understanding those labels? Okay? Are you seeing Anna? Or are you seeing what you want to see? Are you seeing your expectation of who I am? I do lots of conference speaking, keynotes, and so forth across the country. And I hand out my business card, and sometimes I'll get calls, and I'll answer the phone. And may I speak to Ana Ramírez-Sáenz? This is Ana. May I help you? Click. Or, hi, I'm looking for Ana Gonzalez. Are you looking for Ana Ramírez-Sáenz? Click. What's happening? What's happening? I asked that once to a caller that heard me speak at a conference. And they said, truthfully, I expected you to have an accent. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So this is Anna, but who do you expect? Who do you have in your mind? Forget the majorette and the baton, right? The blue out, forget that, right? All right? So this is what we're gonna do. It would not be a La Fuente session without an activity. At your tables, all right, you're gonna have 5 minutes. And I don't know if you have something to write with or not, but I would like you to talk about what are some of the labels that you have heard? What are some of the labels that, come on, we gotta be real, that we've used, Que no? Que no? The answer is yes. All right, que no? Virtually, do you guys get that? Stay with me. I'm glad to have you. All right? So at your tables, you're going to talk about those labels. All right? We're going to give you 5 minutes. Here are the rules. 1, everyone participates. 2, you all hold yourselves accountable to ensure that everybody participates. And then you're going to pick a spokesperson. Everybody got it? All right? And in a minute, we're going to get a volunteer. So I have 8:33. You get 5 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay. All right, everyone. How'd we do? How'd we do? We did good? All right, let's get back together. So we're going to need 2 volunteers. Hola. Hola. Gracias. Muchas gracias. We're going to make you bilingual at the end of this. It's going to be great. All right? So I need dos voluntarios. All right. We got Sir over here that's trying to look away from me. There you go. Sir, please come on up. Quickly, quickly. There we go. And we have this beautiful lady with the glasses and purple shirt. Volunteer. There you go. Yes, that's you. Would you like to volunteer? Yes, ma'am. If you want to, yes. If you don't have to. But all right, but give her an applause. All right, come on up. Hello, John. Thank you so much for volunteering.
Absolutely.
All right. Oh, and
Nice to meet you, Anna.
that is the version of English of Anna. So very good. All right, good deal. All right, here we go. You are going to stand right here. And this is John. And this is Ann. All right. So we're going to talk about labels. So you're going to stand on this side of the table, right here. There we go. And I'm going to be in the back. And I'm going to guide you. All right. So this is your corporate culture. This is your corporate culture. All right. You all talked about labels on your tables. So we have food coloring, all right? Disclaimer, and I do have a lot of insurance liability that includes dry cleaning, all right? Be careful. So every time, and we're going to do about 5 or 6 of these, all right? So every time you hear a negative label, I want you to squirt just a little bit, okay? And you have a little spoon, and you're going to mix it. When we hear a positive label, all right, I would like for you to add a corporate benefit, which is your ice. Got it? All right, we got 5 minutes. All right, online, you're going to be participating on this, so I think we have someone reporting. All right, volunteers. We're going to take one from this side. Anybody, go ahead. Raise your hand. Don't be shy, or otherwise I'll call on you. All right. Yes, ma'am. Stand up. Your name?
My name is Kate. I'm from Zealand BPW. My word is educated.
I'm sorry?
Educated.
Educated? All right. Let's put, very good. All right. Over here, let's get a opposing label. Go ahead. Anyone? Don't be shy. I'll call on you.
Online, they talked about being judgmental.
Absolutely. Put a little squirt in there. All right, now turn it around. All right, another one, another negative label. Go ahead, raise your hand. Okay, now did you talk about that in a positive or in a negative? All right, there you go. All right, one more over here. All right, anyone? Yes, go ahead, please. Ah. Ooh. to hold off on that one because I'm going to come back to it. But thank you. All right. Do we have our friends online?
About being stereotypical.
Okay. So here you go. Put a little bit. All right. Over here, anyone? Any other label over here? Don't be shy. I'll call on you. Okay. I'm going to call that a benefit. I'm going to call that a benefit. Experience, right? All right. No brain drain, right? Okay. All right. Over here, all right? In the back, the lady that just pointed. There you go. Right up, your name and your label. About? Okay. In a positive or negative way? Both? Okay. All right. I'm going to call that a benefit. What do you think, Ann?
I think it's a benefit.
All right. All right. Here we go. A couple more. Right here at this table. Yes, please. Okay. All right. We're going to hold off on that one too. All right. Come on. You know, like West Michigan Nice. Come on. Let's hear that. Let's go. Yes. Okay. All right. So that's, you know, all right. All right. Let's get a little bit more to the edges, guys. Come on. Because we know them. All right. We got to get real. All right. Over here. Anyone? Please. I'm sorry. Too emotional. Negative? Yeah. All right. Choose a color. You go for it, John. Big old squirt. There you go. All right. All right. Who else? Over here, this table. We got room for two more. Anyone on this table? Anywhere? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Ah. What am I supposed to look like? All right. All right. Put another squirt in there, color that you haven't used. All right. Online. One more from our friends online. Online anymore or just one?
They talked about being resilient as a positive.
Yes. Give it one more. All right. Thank you so much. Applause for Ann and John. Where would you rather be? Where would you rather be if it was a corporate culture and you had to decide? You want ice. You want Benny's. Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. Right, Kelly. Anyone else? Where would you rather be and why? Think about it. Do I want to be here, where my culture is transparent, where I could see clear benefits, where I'm genuine? We're in West Michigan after all, and we are nice. But we have to be real. And we have to be authentic. Does that give us this? Or does it give us that? Right? You decide. You are in charge. You are in charge about the benefits that you want to put in your culture. Did that make a difference? Are they wasted benefits? Because you can't see them. But you know you're pouring them in there. It's an investment. It's your margin. Are you taking away from your profitability? Are you taking away from the contributions that your employees make? Can you see them? Hard, right? So when we think about our corporate culture, and we think about our investments, our benefits, our people, where would you, as a business owner, hiring 600 people, losing 20, spending on average $10,000 to $15,000 to hire, to recruit, hire, train, and onboard an employee in your organization, only to have them leave in less than a year. I was doing an exit interview with a young lady, 26 years old, fired up, MSU MBA grad in HR, fired up. Got with this company, was there a year because she found out that this is where she was. And she wanted this. So, mis amigos, if we don't start being real about where we are, okay, we're going to continue with this great resignation. I know where I grew up. I know that I received a relentless work ethic. Sorry, you just got to give 150%. That's your beginning. I was taught and given an unwavering faith. Go back to it every day when the going gets tough. But I was also given a strong identity of who I am and what I can contribute. And these labels, I decide. I decide that I'm Anna, and I'm going to help you if you're willing and if you're interested in knowing who I am. See? ¿Estamos online? Are we good? We're going to fast forward to, so what do? How do we build an inclusive culture, right? How do we do that? We got to dare to see the individual, okay? We have to understand how we're making decisions, okay? And not gloss it over that, oh, Anna, you're the exception. You're not like them, right? And provide a safe space for this important conversation. This important conversation, right? You guys, you got to keep it simple. These are complex issues. They are at every level. They're multi-level, they're multi-sector, they are complex. They don't have to be when we start in conversation. When we start in conversation. Acknowledge, value, and respect all. That means all y'all. I learned that in Texas. Y'all is you. All y'all is all of you. See how much language you're learning? It's amazing. All right? Leadership drives the example. Okay? We talked about sincerity. Right? When somebody asks you for feedback, respect that. Because it takes courage to ask for feedback. It takes courage. So handle it gently, but authentically, okay? Am I as a leader demonstrating my corporate purpose, my corporate values? Because if I'm not, guess what? Ain't nobody else's. Because you set the tone. You set the tone. Okay? Acknowledge who's in the room. If somebody's missing, who is saying, oh, wait a second, was Anna invited to the meeting? Her input is important to this project. How come she ain't here? She had da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, who is going to keep her updated? Who's going to send her the notes? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Yo no sé. See, you're bilingual already. It's you. You. That's called accountability. Right? Craig said, we want to have people have their backs. We want them to have each other's backs. That's what inclusion is. That's what inclusion is. All right? And then finally, are we recognizing the value in contributions, right? That is becoming inclusive. And some of us fear it. We don't need to. We're people. We care about each other. All right? I'm from West Michigan. Everywhere I go, they ask me, so where are you from? Oh, I grew up in Holland, Michigan. No, where are you from? Like, Holland, Michigan? No, where were you born? Ah, all right, now we're getting somewhere, right? But if I say I'm from Holland, okay, and we have this West Michigan nice, we got to come to terms with what that is, guys. We really do. All right? So, I have 8 minutes. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I've truly enjoyed it, and I'd like an opportunity to meet as many of you as I can. And so, we're going to take time for a couple of questions. Jane?
Who's got the first question?
Don't be shy, because I'll call on you.
Well, I will start, Anna. You talked about honest and open feedback. That can be hard, that first step. What's your advice for taking that first step?
I think the first step is to be welcoming. If somebody says to you, I need to talk to you, don't do this. Don't look at your phone. First thing you do is you put it down and you acknowledge them. You build a welcoming environment so that they can get comfortable with you. And you are demonstrating that you have the full attention to listen to them. Simple, right? Because people want to know that you're present in that moment and that all you care is what they have to say. And then they'll open up and listen authentically. You may not have the answer, and that's okay. It is okay to say, thank you for opening up. Thank you for letting me know your issue. I need to think about it. Or if you have a response, provide that response. And always remember, the person that is coming to you is being courageous for asking for feedback. Brené Brown talks about vulnerability. They're being vulnerable. Does that help? All right.
Questions? Yeah, Mike.
What's the solution to West Michigan Nice?
The one that I use is, yes, I'm from West Michigan, and we are nice people. But there are realities, and I don't hold back on those realities, right? And I'm going to be nice and authentic because you're a human being. But I owe you a truthful response. I owe you a clear answer And I owe you the opportunity that says, we're not perfect. We're not perfect. But we are welcoming. That's how I handle it. Does that help? Right, thank you.
Well, we've come to the end of our time today, Anna. Thank you so much for spending time with the audience. Welcome back to Holland. Thank you for your great insights.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to our digital attendees for being with us. I want to invite you back a month from today. Our speaker in April will continue our theme of leadership and talent development. We're going to be welcoming one of our own Hope College professors, Marcus Fila, in to join us for our conversation that day. Have a great week. We'll see you a month from today. Bye-bye.